The question whispered through Maple Street like wind through the snowdrifts. Why does Ruth place a bowl of soup on her porch each night for someone who doesn't exist? It was the kind of act you'd only notice if you were watching long enough, and retired firefighter Ben Holloway had been watching. Ever since he moved back to his late brother's house in Chestnut Ridge, Iowa's sleepy neighborhood nestled between silent farms and snow-laced forests, Ben found comfort in routine. He shoveled his driveway at dawn, attended Wednesday coffee at Ruby's Cafe, and tuned his old ham radio to catch distant voices crackling across Midwestern air. But Ruth's porch ritual didn't fit the rhythm of town life. Every night at exactly 3 p.m., Ruth stepped out into the falling snow, her breath a quiet mist. Her hands trembling slightly as she set down a ceramic bowl steam, swirling from a soup that smelled like memory, carrot, and thyme. Then she would wait 5 minutes, no more, no less. She'd smile gently into the darkness as if expecting someone, then walk back inside and close the door without a word. Ben had asked around. Ruth wasn't known for eccentric behavior. She was a retired school librarian, widowed nearly a decade ago, polite and reserved. She rarely spoke at town hall meetings unless it involved donations for the children's book fund. And yet, the soup offerings continued. "She's losing it," murmured Carl Jennings at the gas station. "Or she's playing a trick. Ain't nobody taking that soup." But Ben wasn't convinced. There was something sacred in Ruth's silence, something too precise to be madness. One snowy evening, he decided to watch. And someone did take the soup. Who do you think Ruth believes she's feeding, and what would drive someone to keep a ritual alive even if no one believes them? Ben almost missed it. In the stillness of midnight, long after Ruth's porch light had blinked out, a shadow crept toward the bola figure hunched, limping, draped in layers of mismatched clothing. Snow disguised their form, but the way they moved a mix of caution and urgency struck Ben like a memory he couldn't quite place. The figure lifted the bowl, held it close like prayer, and ate slowly, savoring each bite. When finished, they placed the empty bowl precisely where Ruth had left it and disappeared into the pine woods that bordered the neighborhood. Ben's heart raced, not from fear, but from something stranger, recognition. The next day, Ben visited Ruth. Her cottage smelled of lavender and paper, walls lined with books, framed photographs of a life lived quietly. "I saw someone take the soup," Ben said gently. Ruth didn't seem surprised. She folded a handkerchief in her lap and smiled not with relief, but a deeper sadness. "I was wondering when someone would notice." Ben leaned forward. "Who is it?" Ruth looked toward the frosted window. His name was Jonah. The way she said made Ben sit back. Ruth continued. 40 years ago, Jonah was the kid nobody talked to. He came to the library every afternoon with bruises on his arms and stories in his head. I used to read to him after school. He loved tales about people who were lost and found again. Ben's throat tightened. "You think it's him now?" "I know it is." Ruth's voice trembled. "Last winter, I saw his face in the woods. I left out soup, and he came." But she hadn't told Anyoni not because she feared ridicule, but because she believed the world had forgotten how to see the unseen. How many of us walk past invisible people every day, never asking where they sleep or how they survive? That night, Ben waited behind the oak tree lining Ruth's yard, heart pounding like boots on gravel. Again, the figure arrived. This time, Ben stepped forward before the soup was finished. "Yona?" The figure flinched, then looked up. and Ben saw eyes not wild or threatening but tired, eyes that had seen too much. Jonah didn't speak. He looked down at the bowl, then back at Ben. "You used to help folks," Jonah said softly. "You pulled me out of the creek once." Ben blinked. Memory flashed the rescue mission in '87, a flood, a terrified boy clinging to a branch. "I remember now." Jonah's shoulders relaxed, but his body was still guarded. "People forget, not just names but faces. I come here because someone remembered." Ben didn't know what to say. The cold was biting, but something warmer hung between them. "What do you need?" Ben asked. Jonah shook his head. "Nothing more than this. Her soup. It reminds me I existed." When Jonah disappeared into the trees, Ben stood there long after. The snow wasn't silent anymore, hummed with questions. Can one bowl of soup restore someone's lost dignity, and how many memories do we carry that others desperately need? The next morning, Ben returned to Ruth's porch. I spoke to Jonah. Tears filled Ruth's eyes, not from grief, but from gratitude. I was afraid I imagined him, that it was just my hope running ahead of reality. "No," Ben said, "he's real, and he remembers you." Ruth nodded slowly. "I didn't save him. I just fed him, told him stories, let him feel seen." Ben had never cried in front of someone since the day the fire took his partner's life. But something about Ruth, her quiet courage, unlocked a long-stilled ache. "I want to help," he said. Together, they left out more than soup. Warm blankets, clean clothes, handwritten notes. They didn't force Jonah out of hiding, they simply made his hiding place a little more human. Then, after weeks of wordless visits, Jonah left a note. It read, "The stories you told me kept me warm. I'm leaving for a place where I can start again. Thank you for believing I mattered." He signed it, Jonah, the forgotten boy. What if the smallest act of kindness could be someone's last lifeline to hope, and would you offer it without ever seeing the outcome? Months passed. Spring melted the snow into muddy hope, and Ruth's porch sat bare but not lonely. Jonah never returned, but his note hung above the fireplace beside pictures of Ruth's former students, her late husband, and a small drawing Jonah once made a tree with no leaves but roots that stretched far beyond the frame. Ben shared the story at Ruby's cafe, not to glorify Ruth or himself, but to remind the town that invisible people were not imaginary. And things changed. Soup kitchens were opened, lost persons reports were taken more seriously, porch lights stayed on longer. One evening, Ben found Ruth sitting in her rocker, watching the sunset. "You think he made it?" he asked. Ruth nodded. "Yes, because someone believed in his existence." Ben looked out across the quiet street. It started with a bowl of soup. Ruth smiled. "Kindness often does. Would you step into someone's silence and offer a gesture that says, 'I see you,' even if the world calls it foolish?" Sometimes the most powerful acts of compassion happen when no one is watching. Ruth didn't change the world, but she changed one life. And maybe that's what the world needs more of. If this story moved you, consider sharing it and spreading kindness in your own quiet way. Don't forget to like and subscribe to The Kind Story for more heartfelt journeys that remind us how deeply connected we truly are. Disclaimer: this story is an original work for The Kind Story, created by human writers with AI assistance for formatting and narration. It reflects real-life inspired emotions and adheres to YouTube's community guidelines and monetization policies.